Hello, fellow heroes, and thank you for joining me on the July update of the Avengers Campus that's being built at Disney's California Adventure. Let's drop into the action and see what this area used to look like, and now let's see it today. This footage was shot in the middle of June. You can see the June gloom from California there. This is the area that we'll be looking at. This is the Pacific Wharf view of the Avengers Campus. And I want to explain to you what it is that we're looking at as I zoom in here. Let's look at the concept art that has been provided for us. What you see is this is going to become a Spider-Man attraction that mainly exists with these two big giant boxes with a couple of other pieces that sort of stretch through it long ways. You can see up at the top that there's a crane, Spider-Man flying around. So there's a lot that they're showing us here without telling us. So what we're going to do today is we're going to examine this top part of the Spider-Man building, because when I was over at the new Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, I started to recognize a trend that I think that we're seeing here. So this is the construction that was shot in the middle of last month. But here's Galaxy's Edge. That to me looks like a show stage. This bridge over here could also be a possible show stage. I'm thinking that with crowded spaces, they might be thinking, if everything's full of people, why not put the show up above them? Here is a third stage that I spotted in this cul-de-sac. So imagine a loaded up Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, and all of a sudden, in this area that we're in, even up above me here, at Docking Bay 7, that a show could break out. Maybe a blaster fight, maybe some sort of hero's quest, or something that interacts with the audience. But I think that they have set this up to be a performance space. And as I was looking at the concept art for the upcoming Avengers Campus, it got me thinking they're going to probably want to put the show up above us. So as I walked around Galaxy's Edge, I realized that's a balcony with just cloth curtains where you could easily pop out. And then look at this little bit of rock that sticks out with that handrail, supportive handrail to keep a cast member from falling off, especially if you were to be wearing a suit that would blind your vision. And then you can see there's a system of upper and lower stages, stairs for the cast members to work their way around. In the Instagram world that we live in, if you put characters down on the ground, they're going to get mobbed by people wanting to get a pic. But putting them up above everyone allows clean sight lines, great storytelling, and photographs for everybody. Now I'm over on the Resistance far end of the Galaxy's Edge, and we find another cul-de-sac of storytelling. I've seen stormtroopers on top of the building with the red banner there. I've seen them on top of the store. Many of us have been lucky enough to see Kylo Ren do a stage show here. When I looked at this concept art, it really got me thinking that this is a facade for an upcoming Spider-Man attraction. That's what's behind it. What's actually being constructed here is actually a show building. And for many of us that are huge fans, we've seen this animatronic that Disney has released over on YouTube. So it's easy to think that that crane up in the sky might have something to do with this technology that they've been working on. The fact that we've seen stages in the Galaxy's Edge and we've seen them use it with stormtroopers and Kylo Ren, it really makes you think that this idea of getting the story up in the air, it's actually a pretty brilliant, masterful way to put all of these heroes, because these are lands that are built on heroes, adventure, taking us places that we want to go. The best way to make it feel real is to let us see those characters. So when I look at this illustration and I see the crane that we'll refer to in today's video, I think we're looking at a show building, a stage that's up high, and this is a pretty narrow corridor. So to get it up high is going to give a lot of people a chance to see the action. I love this idea. When you see them up there and you see the whole audience, everybody able to take a photo, it's fantastic. So this is what the footage looked like in mid-June. You can see that they've got the layering all there for the different decks, and they're constructing it and putting it together. But then let's move forward 1 week. You can see that they covered it with the outer scrims, And you can also see that there's more texture inside. They've put more vertical beams in. It just feels a little bit more fleshed out. And now we go up to the first week in July. And if you look in there, and I've tried to adjust the colors to see through the scrims, you can see that it's even more dense, and it looks like that staging area in the middle is a little bit more put together. And then this is from the second week in July. You can see they're slowly taking scrims up, taking them down, but it feels very, very dense in there. So I think that they're doing a lot of the internal framework, really getting it all together so that eventually they can put that beautiful outward facade on there. But I'm excited to see where this goes because the Bugs Life Theater that sits behind it, not a massively big space, so this could really add some extra flair. So let's go back over the month. Here we are, going back 4 weeks ago to the early stages of the framing. We cover it with the tarp and add a little bit more of that texture in there. And that's basically just going to be the trend going up to 2 weeks ago, where it just looks more and more dense, more and more put together. And until we get to the final week, where you can see that it's really starting to take shape. So looking at one of these, you would think not a lot's happening, but looking at an entire month put together, you get an idea they're going at a pretty fast pace to put this show building together. Okay, heroes, before I can show you the next portion of the construction update, I need to know that I can trust you because this data came to us from an inside source at Stark Industries. So whatever device you're using, I'm sure it has a camera on it. I need you to put your eyeball right into the camera so that we can scan your eye for clearance.
Scanning.
Okay, you're clear. You're ready to go in and look at the secrets that have been leaked to us from Stark Industries. Congratulations on your clearance. What you see here is the bottom of the building up. Now, 3 weeks ago, we were excited that it looked as if right here on the right of our screen that we zoomed into, that those are reinforcement beams put into the dirt to build something that's going to go vertical there. One of the things that I'm very curious about that we'll explore later in today's update is how are they going to hide the Avengers campus from Mater's Junkyard? This is a week later. Those beams seem to be painted white now, kind of throwing out the idea that they might just be raw beams that we're going to be holding up some sort of screening so that the two areas don't collide with their themes. You can see the crane up there with a pulley hook hanging down, keeping it in place. You can also see that a lot of work is going on in that middle part of the building, which I think is going to probably be the entrance. When you look at it from above, you can kind of see all of the pieces together. That centerpiece would feel like that's where we're going to go into. But looking on this side, you see quite the heavy payload over on the right, which is a lot of surplus of beams that we've noticed that go inside. We were provided this image that shows large containers laid out on the front lawn. And is it coincidence that they happen to be Spider-Man colored? You can also see more of the infrastructure that's going into the building. And looking at it from this angle, you can really see the complexity of how much they've put in there and how fast this is being put together for us. Over on the right, we see that area that could be a trouble spot, but I have a feeling Disney will take care of it. Let's pop out of our blue sky cellar view and move on to our next. That was one of 5 views that we'll be looking at today. The next one that we have for you is over at the Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout in Hollywood Land. Let's drop into the action again. Here, when you look at it from the far angle with no big buildings, you really get the magic of Disney and how when you take out all of the land work and the vegetation that they plant everywhere and all the foliage, when you look at it from this angle, flat Earth, you realize how small it is and how big the magic trick of immersion truly is. Cars Land is just sitting right there. It never felt that close before in Bugs Land. Going up to 2 weeks ago, you see from 3 weeks, you see a lot more action happening. 3 weeks ago, there was a bunch of equipment laying in this space, and now you see that they're using these trench boxes to go around the area to do some under the surface infrastructure. You can really also tell how they paint the Cadillac Ranch, lighter colors at the top to feel taller and further away. Now's a good time to smash like if you like piles of dirt. Now as we do a scan, I want to point out two crucial parts that we'll be looking at as we go on through the weeks. The wall over on the left is a holdover from before. I think it's a sound barrier. And over to the right is a restroom left over from Bugs Land. You can see that it looks very close to everything else, but when we go back and look at it as it was before, you realize this building has a massive amount of space in between it and the Spider-Man attraction that is the building that sits above it. Everything in the pink is what we are looking at. This is the raw earth that we're seeing Disney, their construction team, and Stark Industries massage into what's going to be the Avengers Campus. Let's pop it down into today. There it was back in the day. Here it is 3 weeks ago. Here it is 2 weeks ago, where you can see them putting in a pretty serious amount of underground work, probably drainage, probably running power lines so that we don't have to see power up above us, which also makes it safe during storms. If you're enjoying this update, make sure to subscribe to the channel so that you can catch every one of these that I'll be making every month. And you can see the trench work is just getting deeper and deeper. If we go back one more week, you can see that they were just sort of to start to get in there. They have it all roped off. But a week later, it seems like it's a full-on irrigation system. Over on the right of the screen, you see the part of the gate that used to keep us from backstage, and the trolley would hook over to the right from there. I love that this is going to be one of those items that I don't know how they're going to use it, but you'll be able to walk up to it and say, this is left over from the way it used to be, just like the bathroom that's on the far left of our screen. Looking up from it above, you see this massive amount of land, how far those items actually are from one another. You really get an idea, even though it looks flat here from these images provided by Stark Industries, you get an idea of how much is going on. Now, if you look over on the right, going up to 2 weeks ago, you really see a lot of work going on that building that's on the back side of the restroom, what is believed to be a staging area, maybe for some more of the shows that we were looking at earlier that we've seen over in Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Now here it is, present week, and you can really see a lot of work going on in the right side of your screen and just really moving around the dirt. Now those cranes over on the far left, those are not a part of the Disneyland Resort. That is a hotel that's being built just outside of the Incredicoaster. And you can see that building right there in the center of your screen. A lot of attention is going into that. That's your update from Hollywood Land, just outside of the Guardians in the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Okay, now let's work our way around to the back side of this land, over by Luigi's Rockin' Roadsters. This was always sort of a dead path of the park. What will its future be? Let's drop in and find out. This is what the view used to look like. This is what it looks like today. You can see that wall that I had pointed out earlier. This is 3 weeks ago, and you can see they're basically using this area as a staging area for equipment and supplies. Very interested to see what becomes of this part of the park. How much access will we get, and when will we get into the area that's behind that until maybe the future has never been accessible to us park goers. That building right there on the right, that is a backstage building. That's 3 weeks ago, but here it is 2 weeks ago. Once again, you see the wall that's a leave behind from Bugs Land. And you also see that they're still using this area as a staging area, keeping their supplies in. I'll be interested to see if this footprint changes for us. If we get a little bit more access, if they use a little bit more land to flesh out everything that they'll need to be putting into the Avengers Campus. And here is an update from this current week, the second week of July. And you can see that it pretty much looks to be about the same. Just seems to be an area where they're keeping items. They still have these pathways for employees to be able to make it to their different destinations in the park. And that's your update from location number 3 which is right outside of the edge of Cars Land. And now to complete our loop, let's go over to Mater's Junkyard, Jamboree, and look at what I'm going to be very curious about is how are they going to screen the Avengers campus away from a conflicting land. In the past, this was never a problem because Bugs Land had tons of trees everywhere, and that forest just sort of blended in to the backside of this attraction. But if we're going to have possible high stage shows, lighting effects, a possible animatronic Spider-Man cruising around, they're going to need to do something to keep these two areas separate. So will it be some sort of rock work? Will it be a shallow fake facade of an urban environment to keep it feeling very much like a superhero universe? It'll be interesting to see how they screen this out. And this is one of the things that Disneyland does better than anybody, and what makes the park so special is the way that they separate all of these very, very close pieces of land from one another. So when you're on Main Street, USA, you don't realize that Space Mountain is right on the other side of you. And to the other side is the Jungle Cruise. As we zoom in, we can already see that in its early stages, this is pretty mighty as it looks over Mater's Junkyard. That was it 3 weeks ago, and here it is 2 weeks ago, where you can see that not really a ton has changed, but you can see that it's over there. But maybe they don't care because the Guardians of Galaxy mission Breakout pretty much looks over the entire park. And one of the theming things that kind of got broke with this transition is how well the Hollywood Tower of Terror used to look beside Carthay Circle. They were like big brother, little brother, always ready to take on the nostalgia, and now there's a little bit of the conflict of the messaging. But that's one thing when it's up in the sky and off to a distance and kind of looks like a space junkyard compared to what would be consumed as an Earth junkyard. But what about superheroes battling evil right above this kid-friendly ride? It'll be interesting to see how that comes together. You can really see the crane that we're expecting to see the animatronic show on. That could be very interesting to see flying above Cars Land. We'll be watching this spot and seeing what we can see as they try to keep the two lands apart. That's everything from this section that touches the edge of the upcoming Avengers campus. Now, let's hightail it across the other side of Disney's California Adventure to see what we can find when we go up high in the Pixar Pal-A-Round to get a big view of what Disney and Stark Industries is building for the Avengers campus. As we're going up from the Pal-A-Round, you can see it 3 weeks ago in its current form of that time period where it was a little bit loosey-goosey. But then let's go to 2 weeks as we're working our way up. And you can see once again, it's a lot more dense and more items sticking out of the right side. You also see on the far side that staging show that we are talking about, that we're anticipating that will be built. And you can really see how it messes with your eyes, that it all feels very close to the restroom that they've held over from Bugs Land. But we looked at it earlier and we know there's a lot of space between those two different areas. You also really get an idea of just how high the crane prop is in this facade. This is going back 3 weeks ago, looking at the progress, coming up to 2 weeks ago, seeing how it's getting more fleshed out. And here we are for the current week. I tell you, when you look at it like that, 1, 2, 3, you really do see that they are moving at this at a very fast pace. Now, here's a couple of scans, and keep in mind that I'm very far away and I'm in a rocking Ferris wheel, doing the best I can to keep a steady hand. But you really get an idea of the different levels of staging. On the far left, you see how that one building is going to be recessed back, and you get an idea that it's not going to be flat, that it's going to be very three-dimensional. And then we come over to the big plot of dirt, where this is going to be the fun part to see what new paths do they lay out. What sort of new layout does this park get? The walkways, how does all this come together? Because this is being billed as a phase 1. So obviously whatever they build is going to be pretty open to change and evolution for phase 2, phase 3, and however many phases they have in them. Going to 2 weeks ago, you get an idea of just how much has started to change. Because you can see that it is just a lot more put together. That staging area on the far left looks a lot more built out. And over on the right, you can see that there's a lot more activity in that stage area. I love looking at the park from this height. It just really looks like a little model village. Coming over to the dirt area, you see a big difference in those 2 weeks where they moved around a lot of earth. You can see that mountain is looking pretty tall right there. It's going to be a lot of fun filming this week by week, putting these together once a month to see how the story of the Avengers Campus is being told. And now we look at current week, where everything just seems to be a little bit more put together. You can see more vertical on the far left there. You can see more vertical in the center area that we are assuming is an entryway. You can see a ton of work done on the far right, where we believe there's going to be a jet up above the audience. We believe that will be an area where, like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge, where cast members or characters can interact with the audience. I'm thinking that that's all going to probably angle towards a nice centerpiece, because the Spider-Man building actually sits on a pretty narrow corridor, almost like that'll be the first thing that draws you in to the attraction. Pile of dirt seems to be bigger. We know that they did a lot of trench work between the last 3 weeks. And now let's just kind of look past where we've been allowed to go before and think that if this is phase 1, are we looking at the footprint for the future growth of the Avengers Campus? Decent amount of room back there, especially when you look at what we saw earlier, just how much they fit into small spaces and how well we get fooled with all the giant things they build around it to make it all feel separate. And there she is, Radiator Springs. And that's our final view from the Pixar Pal-A-Round. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and watching the construction update. I hope you enjoyed it. Please comment below if you believe that we're looking at the same thing and that we are seeing stages that are up high. And make sure you check out the next video in this series that'll be showing up the middle of next month. Make sure you subscribe to the channel where I release Disney videos each and every Friday. And until I see you next week, I hope that maybe we see each other at Disneyland. Thanks for watching.